Welcome to the Pest Empire Builder Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about corporate structure and how to set up a next level corporate structure to help your business grow and expand into the future. This is going to be a good episode. And welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you tuned in today. I'm hanging out with my friend Rob. Rob, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing spectacular. This is my favorite time of year. Things are starting to warm up. On a personal basis, I just got clearance from the doctor to start getting back to physical activities. So, yeah, life couldn't be better. How about you?
Yeah, life is going good. It's been interesting. You know, my main primary business has been growing, and as that's been happening, I've been finding opportunities to expand into other business ventures that are related to my main business, and which kind of got us talking about like corporate structures and stuff. But what happened that you are just now getting released from the doctor?
So I had a full hip replacement done. It was my Christmas present to myself back in December, and so
Okay.
I've had 3 months of laying around and waiting for the bone to infuse into the new titanium bionic me that I have working down there. So
Wow.
yeah, just kind of easing back into the running and climbing and kind of teaching my body that it can use that leg normally now.
Man, full hip replacement. You look amazing for being 80 years old, you know? Like
Yeah, I decided to do, instead of waiting till 80, I figured I'd try it out at the halfway mark and just get it done in the 40s. And
I love that, yeah.
yeah, no reason to wait till 80 to get it done.
Right, exactly. Those guys are slackers, yeah.
Exactly right. You can't do anything with a titanium hip when you're 80. If you get one at 40, then you're
Right.
bionic and you still have energy to get stuff done.
I actually like that. You know, my hips feel great, but maybe I'll replace them right now just, you know, like it's a strategy now at this point, right?
Yeah, go full metal skeleton, and then you don't have to worry about breaking. You can take some wild wrecks on your bike, just eat it, and you're going to be totally fine.
Yeah, I wonder what that would cost, like a full metal skeleton. But then you don't have any bone marrow. I feel like it's going to disrupt the ecosystem of my body. So
Yeah,
I like the
I have a
idea
hunch
from
there would be some concern with that.
I'll be like Wolverine, you know, like I can punch somebody and have steel arms. Like you can punch somebody so freaking hard if you had all titanium.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that life goals. I know. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Those are the best ones.
Those are great. Those are good. Yeah, because you're super active. You're definitely an outdoors active kind of guy, and so yeah. And I know like that your hip had been bugging you for a long, long time, and so
Yeah, I think it actually
getting worse.
played to my advantage because I haven't known anything other than it hurting really bad all the time. Even when I was a kid and a teenager, it just always hurt. And so I thought that was just part of life. When people talked about being sore or whatever, I related it to that. And when I would go and do things like run a marathon or run 100 miles, it was like it hurt, but it just hurt the same. So I think I had that advantage of just being used to being in pain and not having a point where I had hit where it hurt much worse than other people. So yeah, it probably proved to be an advantage to some extent. I wonder how I'll be now, if I'll be a wiener or, yeah.
Does it hurt now, like with the replacement?
No, not at all.
Wow.
It's
that's gotta
weird
be-
because now I feel like muscle soreness and that type of stuff in there. And it just is such a different sensation from the achy bone and the shooting nerves that, yeah.
Wow. So you've lived with your sense of normal for 40 years of your life was like this pain that you were dealing with, and all of a sudden now it's gone. And so your sense of normal is so far off on pain that that's fascinating.
100%. Like I kept, after surgery, I walked out of there, which is normal for hip surgery. That's not anything abnormal, but I put the painkillers up on the shelf. I'm like, at some point, the spinal block and all the painkillers they gave me during the surgery, they're going to wear off. And then weeks passed, a month passed. I'm like, I think it's probably worn off, but I feel nothing. Like there's no pain to worry about. This is totally fine.
That's unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's really exciting. So now are you planning on maybe running another marathon or something?
Yeah, so when I was first getting it done, I thought that I was just going to be grateful to be able to run 3 miles again. Like, just give me a 5K and have it not hurt so bad that I can't move for 2 days, and I'll be super happy. But when I met with the surgeon afterwards, he sees it as an opportunity for his side of the business to be able to promote what a hip replacement can do. And so he asked me if I would be willing to run another marathon and even do an ultra marathon so that he can prove what a hip can do, that you don't have to come in and be like super cautious with it. So yeah, he convinced me. I'll work my way up to it. I figure I want to get a sub 5 mile and then probably go for something like a sub 17 5K and then just keep working my way up. I'd like to, like before my hip replacement, I got a 1:23 half marathon. So maybe if I could go in that same realm, get a sub 3 marathon, and then go for another 100 miler and see if I can beat my old record.
That's cool. I can smell a sponsorship for sure. You know? Yeah, exactly.
Yep, sponsored by Summit Orthopedics. Here comes Rob.
Yeah, you can be like a professional, like a sponsored athlete, by an orthopedics company. Actually, if they're going to use you for like a poster child, yeah, absolutely.
100%. And it's the best sounding thing for me. Take advantage of me because, man, I'm so grateful to have it. It's awesome.
I love it, man. I love that. That's so cool. Yeah. So, all right. So I've been venturing into new business deals and I've owned 10 different businesses throughout my life. Right now, I own a home inspection company, but I'm branching out into other business ventures that are bolt-ons to the home inspection business, one of which is pest control. You have primarily a pest control company. That's your big one, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then are you branching into other businesses?
We've played around a little bit. So nothing real related. I think I'm in a very different camp from you where of your 10 businesses, how many of those are home service related?
Oh boy, let's see. I had a landscaping company at one point. I had electrical contracting at one point, and then home inspection. So those were home service businesses. But I've owned gyms, a moving company. Okay, that's home services. That's people in trucks moving stuff. I've owned car lots. I've had what else have I had? When I was real young, I was a street pharmacist. So I've had kind of a variety of things. That
that helps. Yeah, we have some rental lodges out in Idaho, so absolutely not related to home services, but we have a couple of different businesses out there that are tied into one parent company on it, and then we also have a consulting company that we do, and then I'm involved in it's kind of a little bit dormant right now, but we have a construction company where we put together a whole neighborhood and went from bare land to putting in sewer and building the houses and selling them and that type of stuff.
Wow, you did the whole thing, the whole development package from just nothing to it. You put in the infrastructure and everything. Yeah,
it was awful, but it was a cool experience. Fun to see how all of that comes together from beginning to end. Yeah. Where if you're just dealing in like the tail end, like the last stage real estate, you just get no idea of what goes into some of that permitting and how you can run into just the weirdest hurdles on some of those when you've got to put the whole infrastructure into place.
100%. Yeah, it's a little wild, like how much work there is. And the guys that are really good at it can make really good money at it because it's such a pain in the butt. You know, the land development guys that'll get the land, they'll, put curbs and streets and put in, sewer and electric and, they get all developed and break it into lots and then sell off the residential lots, like that. The guys who do that, once you're good at that, man, you see guys making some big money on that.
And I think a big thing, especially in that particular sector, is just the amount of patience that an individual has to sit on it and wait for the right timing. Like you can't have it be mechanical, this step, follow a very particular timeline. Like you have to sit there and wait for the right opportunities, and you develop up to a point and then you wait, and then you've got to rush and then you've got to wait. And I think there are a very small select group of people that can play that game well and be able to not just go crazy.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And so it's a very different skill set. And so you've built out neighborhoods. That's interesting. All right. So So every time you're doing a business venture, I'm assuming you're doing similar stuff that I am, where it has a separate LLC or a separate corporation or corporations that own LLCs, holding companies, a corporate structure that protects your assets, protects your and like limits liability, and I imagine you're doing that with each of your projects. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
We've learned that over the years that it takes time and there is a lot of legwork to get something set up the right way, but it is so much easier to do correctly on the front end that it is totally worth it. Because going down the path of a business, I think anybody that started a business can relate to just how much variance there is in the path from what you think you're going to take to where you actually are, and how many different curveballs you get thrown. And some of those are good ones and some of those are bad ones. And so if you can look at that and separate out your business into the different structures that carry different types of risk, then you can structure it accordingly to be able to spread that risk out. And if you run into a problem in one arena of your business, it's not going to collapse the entire business. You have a way to just cut that off, do something different, do some kind of triage in that one area, and set things right. So with yours, do you have a preference between LLCs and S Corp or corporation?
So I tend to do LLCs for the individual businesses, and then it's owned by a holding company, which is a corporation, and that's how I tend to do it. So okay, so here's an example, because you're firewalling off like your different businesses, right? So if you do rental properties, some guys will bundle and they'll put 2 or 3 houses under each LLC, or each house, or sometimes it's singular. Each house has its own LLC, depending on how their strategy is on that. But I can tell you, here's a great example, right? Like I owned a gym for a little while and I lost my butt on the gym. So the gym was struggling. I bought it for pennies on the dollar, and I thought, I'm going to buy this thing and I'm going to turn it around. I don't know much about the fitness industry, but I've owned quite a few businesses, and I felt pretty confident that I could turn this thing around. Couldn't turn it around. So there's multiple reasons why. But so here I am 12 months into this thing, and I've lost $250,000. And before I finally said, okay, I'm pulling the plug on this, right? So here's the example of like, because at some point you got to look at the writing on the wall and be like, okay, how much more money is it going to take to turn this thing around? When am I going to recoup my investment? And in this case, I bought a business that was struggling hard, and I thought I could turn it around. I just couldn't. And coming to grips with that and realizing like, what are your options, right? And so at that point, it's like time to pull the plug. So everything in that business was owned by the LLC. So it's like its own separate entity. So the lease agreement I have was not personally guaranteed. It was only through the LLC, right? So all the assets, all the equipment, everything inside of there is LLC. So when it was time to fold up shop and it was like, this thing isn't going to work anymore, if I was personally guaranteeing all of this stuff, well, now all of a sudden liability can bleed from that LLC into my personal life or maybe other things in my world. And by keeping it siloed like that into a separate, and you got to make sure your money's organized, separate bank accounts, separate everything. And so there's no crossover, right? And so keeping that totally siloed, I was able to close that business down and not have to deal with long-term liability anywhere else in my organization. And so by doing that, I was able to close up shop, went to the landlord. Listen, this thing isn't working. You know, it's been struggling. He's like, yeah, I know it's been struggling. And I said, so I'm going to exit this and we're going to close this thing down. And he's just like, well, and he's like, well, your lease is valued at this much. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, and the LLC, you could certainly pursue the LLC if you would like to. Said, so my plan right now is I'm going to have an auction house come in and we're going to liquidate all of the assets inside of the gym to pay back creditors. And you are the largest creditor because of the lease value. And I explained the whole thing to him, and he was like, he said, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, I mean, you're right. And so he actually made an agreement with me, and he removed all liability from me. He says, how about this? He repossessed all the equipment inside the building. He said, I'll repossess everything in the building and I'll sell it off myself. and I'll let you out of the lease. It's like, so you'll trade all the assets inside the building for the value of the lease. Yeah, absolutely. Put that thing in writing, moved on with my life. And
game on. That saved you a lot of hassle, didn't it?
Absolutely, because and to be fair, he wasn't the only creditor, right? And so there was, but that lease value was very expensive. I still owed a few $1,000s to a couple other places, but I just was able to fold up shop on the LLC. And so because he repossessed everything inside the building, I literally just locked the door, handed him the keys, and walked away.
That's so amazing. It's amazing what kind of change comes about when you can present somebody with those partitions, whether it's somebody like that, where it's, somebody that you owe a lease to or money to, or if it's somebody coming after you for a lawsuit or something like that, when you can delineate and be like, okay, well, here is the partition in this. You can, some guys are going to be smart. Like that landlord sounds like he's been around the block multiple times and knew exactly, he's like, yep, this is my best path forward. There's no reason to have ill will. I understand the situation. And it sounds like you had a very empathetic, positive approach with it, really open communication, which really served you well.
Yes.
But that just really proves the point of how valuable those things can be. You mentioned something really important on there, which I think is a piece that a lot of people miss, and that is the importance of having separate bank accounts, having separate operating agreements, having agreements among the different companies and the parent company, and keeping all of that in order. It takes a lot of effort. So how did you stumble across that? Did you have a really good lawyer or accountant that told you about it? Did you make a few mistakes the first time through, or how did you end up with the appropriate structure and systems on it?
So School of Hard Knocks. I haven't worked for anybody in over 20 years. And so I had a sound and lighting company back, like old OG back in the day, and did sound and lighting for nightclubs and for like small concert venues. And I did a lot of service repair work, and then did some sales and installation, service repair work. And then I started branching out that business into acquiring gear for rentals. And so I'd rent out gear for, a band needs to rent some extra backline, some extra whatever equipment. So I'd rent that out to them. But I picked up that extra gear, and I picked that up on credit. And so, because the gear is very expensive. So I picked up the gear on credit. So I had payments on the equipment, and I owed money. The company owed money on that. Well, I was personally guaranteed on all of it. I didn't have anything separated out the right way, managed the right way. And so, at 21 years old, that business, went under. It was actually went under when I was 20. So I started when I was 18, and it was doing really, really well. And then there were some bumps in the road, and then it fell apart, mostly because I was just young and dumb and didn't know what I was doing. And so at 20 years old, the whole thing was collapsing. At 21, I had to move back in with my parents. I sold off everything. And at 21, I owed like $45,000. At the end of it all, I owed $45,000. And I considered filing bankruptcy over $45,000 at 21, because at 21, that seemed like an infinity amount of money. And, and this was also, I'm almost 50. So this is also almost 30 years ago. So $45,000, whatever, that was that was more money then. It'd probably be closer to $100,000 now, and if you're 21 years old and owed $100,000 and have nothing to your name, it feels like infinity. And so, that I learned my lesson the hard way there, and I was like, "Oh man, I did not do this the right way." And so from there on out, it was like I had legal advice on how to set things up. So now you have operating agreements. You don't commingle money. If you use your personal credit card to buy something for the business, or the business company credit card to buy something for personal, you basically build a bridge across the firewall that you established, and so then legally they can chase that backwards over and connect the two. And then if they can connect the two, then they can come after whatever's connected to it. So understanding the firewall that you build with your LLC structure, and understanding don't commingle money, and make sure that all of your operating agreement, your buy-sell agreements, all that stuff is established on the front end, legally structured the right way. Then you stick to the plan. Now all of a sudden you have yourself set up in a good way, and you can take more risk that way because you understand what you're risking. I didn't risk everything in my empire for this gym. I only risked what I put into the gym account as the investment. And so I mean, I ended up losing $250,000 on this thing. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of money, and it sucked. But I understood that's all I'm risking. That's all I'm going to lose. Versus if it started toppling down the whole empire, well, then that was millions of dollars, right? And so it's like, that's my entire life. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. So it's really important to have your corporate structure right. And I've learned this the hard way from that experience when I was young.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm curious, I'll maybe to frame the question, I'll give a little bit of background on how we set ours up over the years.
I'm curious how you have yours set up. Yeah.
Yeah. So in our first go around, we had things siloed off by geography. So as we opened up a new location in a new state, we would make that be its own entity under the larger corporate structure.
So a separate LLC for that city. Would you just do a DBA, like a doing business as, to keep the branding consistent, or would you have a separate brand?
We had a separate brand, and we did it when it was Rove Pest Control. We did like Rove Pest Control of Minnesota and Rove Pest Control of Arizona. And so you could have that, and we never really needed to do a DBA because we were just, we were using the same name. It was just the shortened part of it. And when we were setting up contracts with creditors and that type of stuff, nobody had any questions about it. It was like, oh yeah, it's of this state. It's super clear what it is. So that geography thing, it was super slick, made things really easy. But the thing that we didn't realize is that it was really hard to gain efficiencies and economies of scale with that, because we were cutting up the business the wrong way. So as we, put on customers, they're the same type of business. They're just separated by a little bit of land. But we couldn't use that as buying power when we had it across 5 different states. And so it was hard to go in and be like, and have that extra purchasing power of having, we have 5 entities of, let's say, $500,000 instead of a total of $2.5 million that you're using as bargaining power, because they're separate companies. So we restructured after that, and we set things up more by department and areas of risk, things that are completely, potentially different boats, but they hold consistent across geography. So we ended up doing a employee leasing company, and then we had our main service company, and those were the 2 divisions that we had there.
Employee leasing company, what is that? What do you mean by that?
So all of our employees, they worked for a different company than the service company.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
because
so rather than dividing by states and geography, you put all your employees into an employment company that contracted to your service company.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay, so you structured it that way.
Yeah, because you have different risks with the customer-facing company than you do the employees and that type of stuff. And so it makes it a lot cleaner when you're looking at different legal structures that you're having to face to have those be separate pieces. And we've recently been working on another restructure. And in this one, we're taking all of our marketing stuff and we're putting it in a separate company. So we've got the straight service, then we've got the employees in another bucket, and then we've got the marketing. So independent contractors, marketing agreements, all of those efforts are running through a different company.
And so are each of those LLCs or corps, or what are you doing? LLCs?
Yeah, they're all LLCs.
And are they owned by a corporation?
This time we did an LLC. So before we had an S Corp that owned it all, and then we were looking at doing a potential corporation with it, especially because there's some pretty nice tax advantages in there if you hold for 5 years and you don't sell prior to 5 years being completed. But when we got done looking at the analysis of the complexity of the system versus the advantages, we were able to get the same safety and protection and distinction between the different areas by doing LLCs without having to go down the C Corp road. And the LLC provides some more flexibility and advantages over the S Corp. So yeah, we went all LLCs this time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I normally have all LLCs, but they're all, I have a C corp that owns them all. And so,
Owns them all.
And, but I do that for a couple of reasons. And the C corp is basically a holding company. And so what that does give me there's some tax advantages to structuring it that way. I'm not going to give tax advice, because I'm not a CPA. I can only share from my own.
Yeah, we should throw that disclaimer. We're not giving any tax advice, no legal advice.
No legal advice. I'm only telling you this is the path that I've chosen based on legal advice that I've received from my counsel. And I think if you're going to start as your business starts to grow, whatever industry you're in, when your business starts to grow, it's good to sit down and go, okay, what risk am I exposed to? If you have a customer, or if you have a situation with an employee that results in a lawsuit, hopefully it never happens. But if it were to happen, in your situation, they can come after the employment company, but they can't come after your main service company. And so by separating it that way, same thing is if your employment company handles all the vans and vehicles for your people and the trucks, or does a service company have it? Like, where do you categorize everything? And then you're able to silo off individual things, so a lawsuit can't come and take everything. It can only come after the part that touched them. So, they can't go after an employee situation if, it depends. I can't think of the scenarios off the top of my head, but being able to isolate it out like that is super important.
Yep. Yeah, it really is.
If you have multiple real estate houses, right? It's like for single family home rentals. If you have a different LLC for every house that you own, something happens in one of the houses, I don't even know what, something catastrophic, and there's a lawsuit, they can't take down your entire real estate empire, because the only thing they can go after is the one house that they're in, because that house has its own LLC. If you bundle 2 or 3 houses into each LLC, in theory, they could come after 2 or 3 houses at a time. But if all your houses are just under a singular LLC, something happens bad in one house, a lawsuit could take down your entire network. So you want to be able to isolate off each individual company. You're isolating off divisions of your company even, which is, you also have a very large company. So but still being able to find the ways to restructure and organize is super critical.
Yep. And even like this new iteration, because we were acquired last year, so we're starting from the ground up, and we're still going to separate it out that way rather than wait and restructure later on. It's just a really nice, clean time to take all the lessons we learned from the last one and say, hey, what would be ideal in this situation with everything we faced in the normal course of business and all of the random curveballs that get thrown your way. Like, what would be the best structure to shield us from all of the worry and risk like you were describing. So super helpful.
And by allowing for me, allowing my corporation to hold all the major assets, and the LLC is the customer facing side of things. And so if something does go wrong, and we end up finding ourselves in a lawsuit, or we lose a lawsuit where, there's now a judgment placed on the LLC, all the major assets are held by another company, another LLC, or another corporation. So they can't take the fleet of vehicles. I'm actually trying to buy an office building right now. Well, my LLC will rent space from that office building, from a different LLC that I'll own from the corporation. And so then they can't take the building because, the inspection LLC is only providing the inspection services, And you're going to go after my used sewer scope? Like, come on, that's crappy, literally covered in crap. You don't want that thing, And it just limits liability in a lot of ways to where they can't, execute. They can't take everything, And you never, and in the world we live in, unfortunately, people sue everybody for everything. And so all the time. And so you got to find ways to protect yourself from that. And then there's the tax advantages too, to be able to move money into different entities, to be able to have a good tax strategy to make sure you're not overpaying on taxes.
Yeah, 100%. And it's nice if one entity is doing a little bit better than another, you're going to have different expenses that come up that you could bucket in one versus the other. And that'll help you. You can go to your accountant and say, hey, which one should this go into? And you can structure everything to be able to take advantage of balancing out those equations and making sure you don't end up with huge tax liability on one and small one on the other.
Yep.
So
yeah, and you're still going to pay your taxes,
Yeah.
And I hate the word loophole, right? People are like, I found a tax loophole. And it's like, that stuff drives me nuts. It's not a tax loophole. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's and so here's like, for example, like the heavy truck, Section 179 truck thing, right? Like, if you get a bigger vehicle, although they just changed the rules on that. But the Section 179 truck a thing in the tax code, the government essentially says, we would rather that you take these dollars and put this into this specific industry by buying a new heavy duty truck than to give those same dollars to us, the government, to be able to manage. And so, so they basically use the tax code as incentivizers for us to spend money in the areas to stimulate certain parts of the economy. And which is why there's real estate rules about depreciation on commercial properties and things like that that allow you to limit or reduce tax liabilities. And it's because the government says, we would rather have you spend your money in these sectors than to give it to us to spend. That's their decision. And so when you have a good CPA who's a tax strategist, not just but a tax strategist, they go, okay, here's where the government is encouraging you to spend your money. And so if you're at the end of the year and you're like, well, I'm going to send $100,000 somewhere, it's either going to go to the feds or it's going to go to a truck, you know? And it's like, well, I'd rather have a truck, you know? Or whatever it is. Like, you know, it's not really a loophole. It's just they're wanting us to stimulate the economy in certain directions.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I also hate that word loophole. I have a really good friend, and he is the king of loopholes, and he is really trying a loophole where he's like, if you frame it like this and you do this, then you can deduct it. I'm like, yeah, but that's lying. Like, that's not what it was intended to do. And if you get caught, you're going to pay that plus penalties and fines. But what you're talking about and what we do in our company is we make sure that everything is 100% in line with the intent of what that tax structure and that tax code was written for. And that's what a good accountant is worth their weight in gold, because they'll explain, like, it's written as this is the intent, this is the intended duration of it, and this is how you should utilize that and apply it to your business. And like you said, what we're doing is we're helping to simplify government, and that's why we get a share in some of those savings. Is we're taking away a lot of the bureaucracy and structure that would have to go in place to be able to maneuver all of these different pieces of the economy. And so you've got all these government experts and economists that are working on this and saying, here's where we need to push this lever and here's where we need to shut it off. And so a good citizen and a good business citizen are going to be very familiar with those codes, and they're going to run their business strategy accordingly so that they can help out not only their own tax benefit as they're motivated to, but they're going to be helping out their local and their state and their national economy all at the same time by following those recommendations and guidelines and working towards their own self-interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need, I 100% agree with you. Like in the sense, we're not trying to work a loophole and play a weird game. It's just sticking with it. And there's simple things like you can hire your kids if they're under the age of 18. I think last I heard it was like $12,500 per year that you can hire your kid. And so I'm going to write a $12,500 check either to taxes, or I can write it to my kid, and it's tax free to the kid. And like that money's going to leave my account. It's right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's going to leave because we have these profit dollars we have to manage. And so that's something like, so I have two kids. Well, you know, I was able to essentially, they don't even know this. Hopefully they don't see this episode, but like I'm not cool enough. They're not going to see it, but I have this money that I've been writing to them, and it's sitting in an account for them at some point in time. And so at some point they're going to realize, oh, hey, Dad actually was investing in us, you know? And so, so have that going, right? And then there's things like the Augusta rule with your house, right? You can rent your house out, your primary residence out to the company for a certain amount of time for business meetings, right? Well, you better be actually having a business meeting in your house, you know? Like if you're going to do it, if you're going to, like, you look at the intent of it, where some people will just take and they'll write off they take that, like what I think is called the Augusta rule inside, where you can like rent your own house out to your business for whatever fair market rates. And but you better be actually doing it. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're not actually having a business meeting and you're just running the loophole as if you had the business meeting, you're lying. And
yes.
And so you better do it. But guess what I do? I actually have employee appreciation parties at my house, and we barbecue and cook out food, and we have a whole, like, bring your wives and kids and family. And guess what? I get to rent my house out for a corporate retreat center that day at corporate retreat center rates. And I actually have my entire team over to my house, and we have a great time, and it's an employee appreciation party, and it falls right in line with the Augusta rule, right? And so, and that is in there, and it's in the tax code, and it's, I'm actually using it though. Like, I'm actually doing it.
And I'll give you the other side of that equation. Like, you're explaining it perfectly from the business owner and the personal benefit standpoint of it. But there's another side of that too. We run into this a lot. We were doing really well in acquisitions towards the end of Rove when we were there. And I've consulted on a lot of other M&A pieces, and I'm very familiar with what a lot of larger PE groups are doing. Mm-hmm. And one of the issues that we and they run into is there's business owners that are utilizing their house for their business. They're not paying themselves for it. And so not only are they not receiving that benefit as a personal thing, but they're also corrupting the books of their business so that when somebody else comes in to potentially buy them, they can't get a real idea of what that cost structure should be. So if you're not paying yourself, if you're not paying for the facilities that you're using and you're doing it as favors, they're not going to be able to continue to run your business as you did without being able to do that, because those benefits of free pass-through are going to be gone. And so that's where a lot of that due diligence just gets really sticky and ugly. And a lot of businesses end up getting devalued because they're showing a 25% margin, but because they weren't actually paying for the things that they were using, they should have only been showing a 20 or a 15% margin. And so they end up missing out on the opportunity on the front end. But then whenever that back end comes, whether it's in a year, 10 years, or 30 years down the road, when they want to turn around and package that up and sell it, the books aren't really representative of what was going on.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Because if you're using your garage as storage for your equipment or your, whatever it might be, and you're not showing that on your books, you're right. Because if someone buys your company, they can't keep using your garage for free.
No,
they have to store the stuff somewhere. So now they got to rent some space, and so it's not showing an accurate, like you're talking about on the books, right? And so now it's like, it changes the valuation of the company, and like it's, with my home inspection company, like right now I am the growth person, right? Like, company's thriving. It doesn't take a lot of effort to keep it going like it is, but I don't have a person out knocking doors and shaking hands and, kissing babies. That's me. I'm the face of the company. So if you want to buy the business from me right now on my inspection side, you're going to have to hire somebody to be able to do that work. Because I'm not going to do it anymore. And that doesn't show in the books because I don't have that salary. I don't pay myself for the growth side of it. Right. Yeah. And so that's exactly like a valuation issue right there. If I'm going to sell the business, someone has to factor in the fact that there is a role that I'm filling that they would have to pay somebody for.
Yep. And sometimes it's even just like there's people that are paying themselves the absolute bare minimum that they have to be legal. It's like, so you paid yourself $25,000, but to replace you, that's going to cost me $130,000. So it's not apples to apples on that.
No, it's really not. Yeah. And depending on what your CPA says, they'll tell you how much to pay you yourself or not pay yourself, and I'm one of those guys that but I pay myself versus dividends versus owner benefit, I drive a company vehicle. So I it's, you start looking at owner benefit besides just payout, and especially on mergers and acquisitions, it's like, you got to factor all that stuff in. There's a friend of mine that did that. He did a merger, and he had his personal vehicle was actually a company vehicle, and then he had an off-roading Jeep, right? Like, it was built, it was jacked, it was super cool, and he would take it out off-roading on the weekends, and all he did is put a logo of his company on the door and made it a company vehicle, right? And so, but when he's actually doing the merger, of course, it's not really like a company marketing. I mean, he probably took it to marketing events because it was super cool looking, but that's not really an asset so he had to pull all of his vehicles out of that and had to own them personally again, because in a merger acquisition situation, as a business owner, especially if you're a solo business owner, you can bury a lot of fun things into your business that you push it to the other side of the tax line, and you can justify it, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful if you know that you're going to do that, if you're going to use it as a lifestyle business. Yep. I think this ties in really well to the general topic we've been talking about the legal structure on it. But you can also just get a little more granular with some of that stuff, and you can build that into your chart of accounts so that it's real easy to do when you're putting that stuff in. Where if you've got your main marketing bucket, instead of just dumping that company vehicle into there, you can have a subsidiary account of that, the fake company vehicle. You can have this subsidiary account that you put in where it's labeled and it goes in and it's fine with the IRS. There's nothing funny in there. But when you get meeting with another company that wants to look at your business, you can say, hey, look, we structured this out. All of these accounts that start with MW, that stands for Matt Williams, benefit of being the business owner. And so we can just pull all those out because they're expenses that I did for myself. I didn't do them for the benefit of the business other than it's my own perk and it keeps me motivated to do it. And yep. those conversations go so much easier, and it's so much easier to reconcile that with somebody looking at your company when it's pre-divided for them. It's been there for years. They can look at it and be like, every transaction, every line item as we sample this lines up, and yep, so we just pull this out and you have this top line here. This is the business we're buying, and this other stuff is going away with the other guy. Yeah,
exactly. I have a truck. I have it's a couple years old. It's a Ford F-250 King Ranch. It's lifted, it's jacked, huge suspension. It's ridiculous. Like everywhere I show up in that thing, it just turns heads because it's a monster. And, and it's like, well, that's my truck. And, the company owns it and it bought it for me and it did the modifications. And do I really need that for my actual business? No, I don't actually need that big of a head turning vehicle, for my business. But guess what? It's a company vehicle, right? And I know that if I were to sell my business, whoever's buying the business is going to be like, we don't need this truck. This is ridiculous, right? I got to peel that out. That's an owner benefit, and I have a company vehicle, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. But yeah, for somebody else buying it, they're going to be like, yeah, we don't want this monster truck. Like, you can have it. And so, but I got to be able to peel that thing off, right? The maintenance on that, I got to peel off everything off of that thing. And it's the same thing. I got a friend of mine that has a boat, a company boat down at the lake, and it's like, do the employees get to use it? I don't really know. I don't really ask, but the company owns the boat and his logo's on it, so it's like, it's a company boat. And, and so, I'm imagining the company pays for the whole thing. I don't really ask, but yeah, if he were to sell his business, the new owner may or may not want a company boat,
Yeah, and 100%.
Yeah.
Most likely not going to know how to deal with that if they have to keep it. They're just going to sell it off and possibly sell it to him or just figure out.
That's exactly what is going to happen. Yeah. And so as a solo business owner for myself, I don't have any partners. I have off and on in the years, but I don't have any right now. So it's easy for me to just make an executive decision to throw something into I don't have to run a decision by anybody else to buy $100,000 diesel truck and then throw $20,000 into the suspension, and just go absolutely nuts on this vehicle, right? I just do it because it's just me. But you work in a partnership situation now, is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct. Do you guys have lifestyle type allowances to be able to bake that stuff in, or do you keep it super clean and separated?
Yeah, we definitely do, because there are certain expenses that, like we were talking about before, the government is intending for you to run some of those through the business, and there's so much gray area. You just have to make sure and be wise about it and do it the way that you're supposed to. But if we don't, just because it would be a little more complex, one, we'd be missing out on some good opportunities. Two, we'd be messing up the incentives that they've set up to try and get the economy how they want it. Yep. So what we did is we just have it structured where every year we look at the books, we see how things ended up, we meet with the accountant, we say, okay, how much needs to go into a personal expense fund? We get that advice, and then we divide it up, and we'll name it whatever it is for that year. So if we all get $2,000, then it can be the 2K fund, and we just know that we have that much that we can spend on there. And you're never going to get everybody that's exactly right. Like, we have very different taste. Like you were talking about the really big vehicles, the guy that I worked with day in and day out, he had the Gigundo GMC that you could park my vehicle in the bed of it. And I drive this little Subaru because I'm a rock climber and I like to be able to just scoot around and get where I need to go. And I've got a bed liner over the seats in the back so I can throw my gear in there. Like we're just in very different worlds.
Right.
And I don't want to drive the same level of vehicle as him.
Yeah, you don't want the big ginormous truck, right? You want, right.
Yeah.
Whereas I
want
like
to scoot around like a little guy. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I've got one partner that loves to travel, and he's gone every other week. He's going somewhere. So he'll be in Egypt. He'll be in Mexico. He'll be wherever. And he loves that. And I do 2 or 3 trips a year, and I am gassed. Like I cannot travel that much and fulfill my life the way I want to. So when we get to the end of the year, we always have to do a reconciliation where it's like, okay, this guy spent the absolute max. This guy actually went over because he wasn't paying attention. This guy was under. He spent 10% of it, has this weird minimalist views on life. That's me. And so, yeah, we just have a reconciliation at the end of that, and we have the accountant take care of it. But yeah, we definitely do. I think it's super valuable. How do you determine yours?
Well, I mean, the truck situation, for example, was like I had a big tax liability and coming up. And so the answer was like, well, essentially you got to route this somewhere, And so we kind of talked about things, and I was like, well, if you buy a Section 179 truck, you can write it all off right away. And so I was like, cool. So I'm buying a truck, And so for me, it was buying a truck. And when I started looking at it, I started looking at these I just started looking at it. I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do it, let's freaking go,
Yeah.
Go big or
well,
go
you're
home.
You're doing it for a reason. Like, don't skimp on it.
So for me on the lifestyle side of it, like if I'm going to go speak at a conference, like I'm doing a lot more speaking at conferences and coaching and stuff like that. And so, so now it's like, I'm going to go speak at a conference. It's like, right, well, I'm going to buy the airfare. And because I'm going to go to this conference, and the conference is 3 days. So I got 3 days of hotel, but you know what? I'm going to stay for 6 days. And it's like, all right, I'm just tag a vacation on the end of it. Yep. And that's kind of what I've been doing. And so I just end up staying wherever I'm going, and I stay there and just go do fun stuff and explore new places. And I've been traveling a lot lately. And so I don't know if I'm as strategic with the lifestyle side of things as maybe others. I think if I had partners, we'd have to have much more of a strategy of like, okay, what's this going to look like? But as it is now, I don't really have to do that because it's just me. And I'm not married. I'm a single guy. Like I have like no accountability. I have nobody I have to answer to on that side of it other than myself. And it's not bad. Yeah. And so I don't have to answer to anybody. And so if I feel like going to Nicaragua next week, which I am, I leave on Friday, I'm going to Nicaragua for a week. It's like, I don't have to talk to anybody. Like there's no approval process of a business partners or a spouse or anything like that. So the self-discipline that I have to have though, is pretty high. Because of the no accountability, it's like if I don't have self-discipline, I could spend myself into a real pickle if I'm not careful, and sure. And so I still have to have a budget. I still have to have a framework, at least for money, to be able to make sure that I'm spending appropriately. My basic life is really, I don't have that many bills. And so because of that, I don't need a lot of money to live a basic life. And so now I have a lot of extra money for fun stuff. And so if I can route it through the company, I do. And if I can't, I can't, Yep.
Do you have a list that your accountant gave you of things to keep an eye on to put those kind of things through? Or do you just have the things you've already checked with and you do those? And if something new comes up, you just reach out? Or how do you structure that?
Yeah, I've been doing it long enough now. I have kind of a general idea of what I can and can't push through the company. And if there's a question mark, I just reach out. I just send a text message to my accountant and, or an email and they'll respond. And so she gets back to my accountant firm is a pretty large firm. And so, my account manager is, she's great. So I can send her an email. She responds pretty quickly. So yeah, but for the most part, I kind of understand the basic framework of it. And so that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah, but I know what I need to do, which I like from this conversation, is setting up a separate, on the chart of account, setting up the MW, whatever accounts. And that way I can peel it off. Like, I'm not trying to sell my business right now, but I know that at some point in time I am going to want to sell it. So it would be really handy to go, hey, listen, I'm routing my personal stuff through here, my lifestyle stuff through this. And I think putting it in the chart of accounts is a great idea, because then when it comes to valuation time, it's real easy to go, hey, this stuff right here. And then there's a number, it's all categorized, it's all set up in your accounts the right way. And so then, I love that idea. I'm going to do that like ASAP.
Yeah, it's super helpful. And even if it's not, like, for a lot of people that aren't planning on selling their business, it still is going to help them analyze their financials a lot better, whether they do it monthly, quarterly, or annually, because you can pull that out. Even with just fuel expense, right? Like, when I'm looking at my fuel expense, I want to know how much went into getting the truck to the customer's home. I don't want it to reflect if I took 4 more trips out on the boat than normal, or if I decided to do a round trip tour of the country in a motorhome and I spent $10,000 in gas. Like, those little fluctuations, and I know some people just don't have it dialed in that much, but I think there's a lot of value in trying to run a business that way, where you can pick up on those fluctuations by a percent and say, is this because of gas prices? Is it because of what's going on, across the world? Or is it because we're getting less efficient? Or do I have a technician? Like, great example. I remember when we did this, it was almost 10 years ago to the day where we had redone our chart of accounts. We pulled out all of the fluff fuel expense, and then we analyzed it, and our expense was just kind of slowly creeping up. And what had happened is there was this trend among the technicians where somebody was like, oh, I hate being hot, so I just left the truck running the whole time. So that way it's nice and cool when I get in. And then a guy would hear that and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I'd love to get into a nice, cool vehicle. And so we had half the freaking fours out there running their vehicles 12 hours a day. And our fuel was just, creeping up. And we were able to catch it pretty early before we spent that much. But it was only because we had things dialed into the 0.1% on our expense as a portion of revenue. And so we were able to go in and just be like, hey guys, we can't do this. We're going to start tracking idling. And, that was before we had all the fancy GPS stuff that would track all of that for us. But
yeah, we have all that in now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
but back in the day, we didn't have that kind of stuff. Yeah.
No, it was not available. And but there's so many other things you can pick up on, and just having that really clean, dissected chart of accounts, you'll be able to pick up on those trends super fast and make corrections and course corrections to your business way before you run into a hard to fix problem.
Because if you'd let that go too long, then pretty soon, then it starts compounding. It just does. It starts it's amplified big time. And then and people will realize if you give them an inch, they can take a mile. So you got to watch little things here and there. And then maybe you have an employee that once a month is filling up his own car on the company card, right? And then it's like, oh, hold on a minute. How do you catch that? If it's only once a month and it's one vehicle and it's, okay, well, you better have your stuff dialed in to where you can kind of pick up on some of that stuff and go, this guy's gas budget's off a little. What's happening? And so, I think that's pretty important too. But now with all the tracking, how many miles, how they're driving with all the digital stuff. So you can kind of really predict how many miles is this vehicle driving? Here's its average fuel economy. Whoa, the numbers don't match, So you can see that, pick it up a lot easier now with technology. Yeah. This is a fascinating conversation, and I could talk forever on it. I think setting up corporate structures, and then even the budgeting and the money side, and owner benefit. How do you bake that in? How do you calculate it? I mean, I can nerd out on this stuff forever. Yeah, man. But I imagine someone's listening, going I want to chat about this more. If someone wants to get a hold of you and talk to you about it, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd say just hop onto PEB and look in the coaches section. Reach out that way is probably the easiest. There's too many Rob Greers on LinkedIn, so I disappear really nicely into there. But I'm also on there if they want to reach out. They can reach out to me directly there. Otherwise, Door-to-Door Millionaire, I do a lot with there. So if they have something they want to get in touch with me, they can go check out a bunch of Lenny stuff, and they can get in touch with me through him as well. So.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. Yeah. And if someone wants to get a hold of me, you can hit me on my cell phone. You can text me. If you call, I might not answer, but if you can text me, it's 505-301-5784. That's my personal cell phone number. You can always call or text me there. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Love chatting with you. You got so many good ideas and you're doing so many awesome things. It's an inspiration to all of us.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's always good chatting with you too. You gave me a few good ideas today too. All right.
Love it.
Bye.